A family of 4 vanishes without a trace. A campsite abandoned, a green pickup truck nowhere to be found. 7 years of questions with no answers, until now. Metal scrapes against metal as 17-year-old Lucas Alvarez drops to his knees in the scorching Sonoran desert. His hands bleed as he claws desperately at the sand, revealing what everyone else missed: the roof of his father's truck, half swallowed by the merciless desert. "Dad!" The word escapes his throat in a ragged whisper. The door groans open after years buried beneath the sand. Inside, time has stopped. His mother's sunglasses rest on the dashboard where she placed them. His little sister's stuffed rabbit stares up with button eyes, waiting for a child who never returned. His father's knife lies on the floorboard, its blade clean, despite the dried blood staining the driver's seat. Lucas slides inside, hands trembling as they grip the steering wheel where his father's once held firm. The silence surrounds him, suffocating, absolute. He should feel triumph after 7 years of searching, but all he feels is dread. The truck isn't just a discovery, it's a tomb of memories, a vessel of horror, a question mark screaming in a desert that keeps its secrets buried. What happened to the Alvarez family? And why was Lucas the only one left to find out? Welcome to Last Seen Stories, where we uncover the truth behind mysterious disappearances that others have forgotten. I'm grateful you've joined me today for this haunting case of a family vanished and a son's relentless quest for answers. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Are the desert winds howling outside your window, or are you nestled safely in city lights, far from the isolation where this family disappeared? Subscribe now for more chilling true mysteries delivered straight to your feed every week. Victor Alvarez was a man who came alive in the wilderness. A geological surveyor by trade, his weathered face would light up when describing hidden canyons and secret vistas unseen by most. His colleagues described him as meticulous, the kind of man who triple-checked his equipment and never left anything to chance. His hiking boots were always by the door, ready for the next adventure. Elena, his wife of 12 years, balanced his spontaneity with thoughtful caution. A kindergarten teacher with warm eyes and a gentle voice, she'd initially been hesitant about their more remote expeditions. But Victor's passion was infectious, and over time, she'd come to trust his expertise. "He knows the desert like the back of his hand," she once told a friend. "With Victor, I always feel safe, even when we're miles from civilization." Their children were reflections of them both. 10-year-old Lucas inherited his father's curiosity and his mother's careful nature. He collected rocks and fossils, cataloguing each one with scientific precision unusual for a child his age. 6-year-old Sophia was pure sunshine, fearless, quick to laugh, always running ahead on trails with her dark curls bouncing behind her. They lived in a modest home filled with photographs of their adventures, camping beneath starlit skies, hiking narrow canyons, picnicking beside hidden springs. Neighbors described them as inseparable, the kind of family that ate dinner together every night and spent weekends exploring local parks when longer trips weren't possible. The irony that would haunt Lucas for years was that he should have been with them. The science fair project that kept him home with his grandparents might have saved his life, but it also sentenced him to years of wondering what happened to the family that drove away without him. It began with a photograph, a faded Polaroid Victor found tucked into an old geological survey report. A remote section of the Sonoran desert that wasn't on recreational maps, with rock formations unlike anything he'd seen before. "This place is special," he told Elena over dinner, eyes bright with excitement. "It's practically untouched." The planning consumed him. Topographical maps spread across the dining table, water calculations precise to the litre, emergency supplies packed and repacked. Victor even called an old colleague who'd surveyed the area decades earlier. "You'll need to be careful out there," the man had warned. "The sand shifts. Landmarks disappear. It's beautiful, but it doesn't forgive mistakes." Victor nodded, making notes. This would be their most ambitious family trip yet. Lucas remembers the morning they left with painful clarity, his frustration at being left behind, the science fair project that suddenly seemed trivial compared to the adventure he'd miss. "We'll take lots of pictures," Victor promised, ruffling his son's hair. "And next time, you'll be our official expedition photographer." Sophia hugged him fiercely. "Bring me back a special rock," Lucas told her. "The prettiest one you can find." His final image of them. His father behind the wheel of their green pickup, his mother adjusting her sunglasses in the passenger seat, Sophia waving wildly from the back window, her stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest. Victor's last text came that evening. "Made it to the campsite. Signal weak out here. Your sister says she already found your rock. Love you, son." Then, silence. Sunday night came, then Monday. The Alvarez family was due home by sunset. Lucas sat on the front porch of his grandparents' house, watching the empty street grow dark. Each passing car made his heart leap, only to sink again when it continued past the driveway. His grandmother called Victor's phone repeatedly, each attempt going straight to voicemail. "The desert has poor reception," his grandfather reasoned, but his voice lacked conviction. By Tuesday morning, the knot of worry had tightened into dread. Lucas's grandfather called the sheriff's department. "They're never late," he insisted. "Not Victor. He's too responsible." The first search team found the family's campsite on Wednesday. The scene was unsettling in its normalcy. A half-prepared meal abandoned mid-chop, camping chairs arranged around a fire pit, sleeping bags laid out in the tent. But no people, no signs of struggle, and most perplexing, no truck. "It's like they just walked away from their lives," the lead ranger told reporters. Search teams combed the desert for miles in every direction. Helicopters traced grid patterns over the vast expanse of sand and rock. Volunteers walked arm in arm through canyons and washes, calling names that echoed unanswered. Lucas watched the nightly news with his grandparents as the days stretched into weeks. The same aerial footage played on repeat. Endless desert, merciless sun, no signs of life. The search area expanded, then expanded again. The family's smiling faces flashed on screen, followed by the green truck's license plate number. Hope evaporated like water on hot sand until even the most optimistic searchers admitted defeat. The Sonoran Desert had swallowed the Alvarez family without a trace. There's a particular cruelty to uncertain loss. No funeral to attend, no graves to visit, no bodies to confirm what the mind refuses to accept. For Lucas, his family existed in a terrible limbo, not present, yet not definitively gone. The first year was a blur of police interviews and false leads. A hunter claimed to have seen the truck near the Mexican border. A gas station attendant thought Elena had come in for directions. Each hope flared bright, then guttered out, leaving Lucas more hollowed than before. His grandparents did their best. They converted their sewing room into a bedroom for him, hung his rock collection on shelves, tried to create normalcy in the aftermath of the unimaginable. But they were processing their own grief. Their son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter vanished as if they'd never existed. School became an exercise in endurance. Lucas was that kid, the one whose family disappeared, the one classmates whispered about in hallways. Some were kind but awkward, others cruelly curious. "Do you think they're dead?" a boy asked bluntly during lunch. Lucas broke his nose and spent a week suspended. Nights were the hardest. Sleep came with nightmares. His family calling for him from shifting sands, their voices growing fainter as he ran toward them. He'd wake, gasping, sheets soaked with sweat, the desert haunting him, even in his grandmother's carefully decorated guest room. As adolescence arrived, Lucas withdrew deeper into his research. While classmates worried about dates and sports, he filled notebooks with maps and theories. His bedroom walls transformed into an investigation board, photos connected with string, newspaper clippings, weather reports from that fateful weekend. His grandmother found him one night, 16 years old, surrounded by papers at 3 a.m. "Lucas," she said gently, "maybe it's time to—" "To what?" he challenged, voice breaking. "Forget them? Move on?" "To find peace," she finished, tears in her eyes. But peace wasn't what Lucas was looking for. He wanted answers. And as he grew from boy to young man, that need crystallized into obsession. Where others saw tragedy, he saw mystery. Where authorities saw a closed case, he saw overlooked clues. By 17, Lucas Alvarez wasn't just a victim of circumstance. He had become a detective. Have you ever felt that burning need to find answers others have given up on? That relentless voice inside saying the truth is still out there, waiting to be discovered? I see you nodding. Take a moment to hit that like button if you've ever pursued a question everyone else abandoned. Drop a comment about an unsolved case that keeps you awake at night. Maybe it's time someone looked at it with fresh eyes. Now, let me take you into the desert with Lucas as he embarks on the search that would change everything. At 17, Lucas had the lanky build of his father and the focused determination of his mother. The child who'd been left behind was gone, replaced by a young man with a single purpose. His first real breakthrough came from an unexpected source: his father's old field journals, stored in boxes in his grandparents' attic. Unlike the polished reports Victor submitted to his company, these were raw, filled with personal observations and details deemed too insignificant for official documentation. Local guide mentioned strange sounds at night, read one entry from a survey just months before the disappearance. Attributed to wind through rock formations, but unlike anything I've heard before. Another note scribbled in the margin: unusual tire tracks near the western ridge, too deep for standard vehicles. Military testing. Lucas cross-referenced these notes with satellite images, creating a map more detailed than anything the original search teams had used. Areas dismissed as inaccessible took on new significance. Landmarks not on official maps became crucial waypoints. He sought out the original search team members one by one. Most were reluctant to revisit their failure, but Lucas was persistent. "There's something nobody considered," an ex-ranger finally admitted over coffee. "Several areas weren't searched properly because a major sandstorm hit 3 days after your family disappeared. Changed the whole landscape. By the time we got back in, any tracks would have been completely covered." Local tales, dismissed as superstition during the original investigation, took on new meaning. An elderly man in a border town described ghost vehicles that appeared after major storms, trucks and cars buried for years, suddenly exposed when the wind shifted the dunes. "The desert doesn't lose things," the old man told Lucas. "It just hides them until it's ready to give them back." When Lucas announced his intention to conduct his own desert search, the resistance was immediate. His grandparents begged him to reconsider. The sheriff's department refused to allocate resources to a wild goose chase. Even his therapist cautioned against the emotional toll of potential disappointment. But Lucas had spent 7 years living with questions. A lifetime stretched before him. A lifetime of wondering if answers lay just beneath the sand. He would rather face the harsh truth than comfortable uncertainty. He gathered his supplies methodically: topographical maps, GPS devices, camping gear, an old metal detector purchased from a pawn shop, and enough water to survive the unforgiving heat. Each item checked and double-checked, just as his father had taught him. The day before his departure, his grandmother pressed something into his palm. His father's compass, its needle still pointing true after all these years. "Find what you need to find," she said simply. "Then come home." The Sonoran Desert in summer is not merely hot. It's a force that rewrites the rules of existence. By 9 a.m., the temperature had already climbed past 100 degrees. By noon, the air shimmered like water, distorting the horizon into rippling mirages that made Lucas question his own vision. He'd chosen his base camp carefully, a rocky outcropping that provided minimal shade and visibility for miles. Each morning before dawn, he would plot the day's search grid. Each evening, he would mark off another section of map, another area where his family wasn't found. The isolation played tricks on his mind. Sometimes, he'd catch movement from the corner of his eye, a flash of Sophia's yellow backpack, his mother's silhouette against the setting sun, only to turn and find empty space. The wind whispered conversations just beyond comprehension. 3 days in, doubt began to creep into his resolve. The desert stretched endlessly, indifferent to his pain, to his need for closure. Had he simply traded one form of torment for another? Was he chasing ghosts across sand that had long since covered any trace of what happened? On the 4th day, his water running lower than planned, Lucas decided to investigate an area his father had marked in his journal. A section where the terrain changed subtly, where hard-packed sand met looser dunes. It was miles from the original search perimeter, beyond where anyone believed the family could have traveled. The metal detector remained silent hour after hour as he methodically swept it across the ground. The sun began its descent, shadows lengthening when the device suddenly screamed to life. Lucas froze, forcing himself to breathe. Metal objects in the desert weren't uncommon: old mining equipment, military debris, trash carried by flash floods. This could be nothing, or everything. He marked the spot with a flag and continued his sweep. 10 feet away, another signal, then another. A pattern began to emerge, a shape beneath the sand, approximately the size of a pickup truck. As the sun touched the horizon, casting the desert in blood-red light, Lucas drove his shovel into the ground. The blade struck something solid about 2 feet down. He dropped to his knees, digging with his hands until his fingers scraped against something rough, something manufactured. Paint flaked off under his touch, green paint, the exact shade of his father's truck. Lucas worked through the night under harsh portable lights, the physical labor of digging keeping his mind from racing too far ahead. The sand, packed hard by years of compression, surrendered grudgingly to his shovel. By dawn, he had uncovered most of the roof, unmistakably their family truck. The once gleaming green paint had been scoured by sand and sun to a dull, blistered finish. The vehicle lay at an angle, its front end buried deeper than the back, as if it had plunged nose first into the desert. Lucas phoned the local sheriff's office, voice trembling as he reported his find and location. Then he continued digging, unable to wait for official help. Each shovelful of sand revealed more of the vehicle: the cracked windshield, the driver's side door half open and filled with sand, the bed of the truck where he'd ridden countless times on family adventures. With the passenger door finally exposed, Lucas hesitated, heart pounding against his ribs. What would he find inside? Had he been searching for a tomb all these years? The door creaked in protest when he pulled, hinges gritty with sand. The interior was remarkably preserved, a time capsule protected from the worst of the elements. No bodies. The initial wave of relief was quickly replaced by deeper questions. The truck had been positioned miles from the campsite, in an area the family had no reason to visit. The front axle was broken, suggesting a violent impact. Most puzzling of all, the keys were missing from the ignition. Lucas sat on the edge of the truck bed, trying to make sense of it all. His family hadn't simply driven here and abandoned their vehicle. Something had brought them, or the truck alone, to this remote location. Something had buried it, whether deliberately or through natural forces. The mystery hadn't been solved. It had only deepened. By afternoon, the desert echoed with the sounds of approaching vehicles. Sheriff's deputies, forensic technicians, and news helicopters circling overhead. Lucas's solitary quest had suddenly become very public. As he watched strangers swarm around his family's truck, placing evidence markers and taking photographs, he felt a strange detachment. For 7 years, he'd imagined this moment, finding the missing piece that would explain everything. Instead, he'd found a puzzle with even more missing pieces. The forensic team worked methodically, documenting every item before removing it from the truck. Lucas stood at the perimeter of their makeshift crime scene, watching as pieces of his past emerged from the sand-filled interior. Sophia's stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hops, she'd named him, was found wedged beneath the back seat. The toy had been her constant companion since her 3rd birthday. She wouldn't have left it willingly. His mother's sunglasses lay on the dashboard, one lens cracked, the frames bent as if stepped on. Her handwritten journal was recovered from the glove compartment, its pages stuck together from years of heat and minute moisture. His father's camping knife had been found under the driver's seat, not in its usual sheath on Victor's belt. The blade was clean, showing no signs of use in self-defense. The back seat held camping gear, sleeping bags, a cook stove, emergency supplies, all packed as if for a hasty departure from their campsite. A gallon jug of water, half empty. Sophia's yellow backpack containing a change of clothes and her favorite books. Lucas approached when they uncovered a familiar object, his mother's camera. The forensic technician carefully placed it in an evidence bag. The memory card might still be intact, she told him gently. We'll do everything we can to recover any images. The most disturbing find came late in the afternoon. Faint brownish stains on the driver's seat that tested positive for blood. Not a large amount, but enough to suggest injury. As daylight faded and portable lights illuminated the excavation site, Lucas was allowed a supervised examination of the truck. He ran his fingers along the familiar contours of the dashboard where his father's hands had rested. The keys to the family home still hung from the rearview mirror, a St. Christopher medal attached to the ring, his mother's choice to protect travelers. Lucas sat in the passenger seat where his mother should have been. The weight of absence pressed against him from all sides. They had been here. They had touched these same surfaces, breathed this same desert air. And then they had vanished. The truck offered clues, but no clarity, evidence without conclusions. Like finding a single page torn from the middle of a book, Lucas could see fragments of what had happened, but couldn't read the full story. As he stepped back from the vehicle, a technician called out from the truck bed. She held up a child's drawing, protected from the elements inside a plastic bag, Sophia's artwork showing their family holding hands under a bright sun. In her childish scrawl at the bottom, "I wish Lucas was here too." The sob that tore from his throat took him by surprise. 7 years of controlled grief cracked open in an instant. The discovery transformed a cold case into a media sensation overnight. Missing family's truck, found buried in desert, screamed newspaper headlines. Son's 7-year search ends in mysterious discovery, declared television reporters standing against the backdrop of the desert. The sheriff's department, faced with public pressure and new evidence, reopened the investigation. The truck was carefully extracted and transported to a forensic facility for more thorough examination. Every grain of sand, every fiber, every fingerprint potentially held answers. Lucas found himself thrust into an uncomfortable spotlight. Reporters ambushed him outside his grandparents' home, seeking the emotional human interest angle. "How does it feel to find your family's truck after all these years?" they asked, cameras pushing close to capture his expression. "Do you believe they're still alive?" He retreated from the attention, focusing instead on what mattered, the investigation itself. He met daily with detectives, reviewing evidence as it emerged, offering insights from his years of research. The recovered memory card from Eleanor's camera provided the first true breakthrough. Photographs taken on their final day. Smiling faces at the campsite. Sophia collecting colorful rocks. Victor pointing to unusual rock formations. The last image was time-stamped just before sunset. Their campsite from a distance, as if Eleanor had walked away and turned back to photograph where they'd been. An enhanced image revealed something no one had noticed during the original investigation. Faint tire tracks behind the campsite, too wide for their family truck, appearing to approach from the east. They hadn't been alone out there. New witnesses emerged, emboldened by the renewed attention. A Border Patrol agent recalled an unmarked helicopter flying low over the desert the weekend of the disappearance. A trucker reported seeing a convoy of unmarked vehicles heading into the desert near where the family had camped. The blood on the driver's seat was confirmed to be Victor's. Not enough to suggest a fatal injury, but evidence of some kind of trauma. Sand samples from inside the truck contained mineral compositions inconsistent with where it was found, suggesting it had been moved from another location. For Lucas, each new piece of information was both victory and torment. The mystery was unraveling thread by thread, but the central question remained unanswered. Where was his family? As the investigation progressed, multiple theories emerged, each supported by fragments of evidence, yet containing critical gaps. The criminal abduction theory gained traction when forensic analysts discovered microscopic fibers on the truck's door, handles that matched no items from the family's belongings. Unknown fingerprints were found on the truck's rear bumper. But if abduction was the motive, why had no ransom ever been demanded? Why abandon and bury the only vehicle that could have transported 3 people from such a remote location? The environmental disaster hypothesis suggested a sudden violent sandstorm might have disoriented the family, causing them to crash their truck. Meteorological records confirmed an unusually severe storm had indeed moved through the region 3 days after their disappearance. Yet this failed to explain the blood evidence, the missing keys, or why the family would have left the relative safety of their vehicle in such conditions. More ominous possibilities emerged as the investigation expanded. That region of the desert had long been rumored to be a corridor for drug smugglers. The unexplained tire tracks and reported convoy raised the specter of a cartel encounter gone wrong. Border Patrol records indicated an uptick in smuggling activity that month. Had the family simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time? A smaller contingent of investigators considered the unthinkable, that Victor, facing unknown personal troubles, had engineered his family's disappearance. Financial records showed no irregularities, however, and all who knew him vehemently rejected the notion. The forensic evidence painted a fragmented picture. The broken axle suggested a high-speed impact. Trace evidence of another vehicle's paint was found on the rear bumper. The blood spatter pattern indicated Victor had been injured while sitting in the driver's seat. And soil samples embedded in the tire treads suggested the truck had driven through an area with distinctive mineral content not found near either the campsite or burial location. Most compelling to Lucas was what the evidence collectively suggested. His family had fled their campsite in haste, encountered someone on the desert road, and then vanished. The truck had been moved and deliberately buried. Whether to hide evidence or through natural forces remained unclear. 7 years later, with the truck finally uncovered, the desert had yielded one of its secrets, but not the one that mattered most. The renewed investigation eventually slowed, then stalled. The media circus packed up and moved on to fresher tragedies. The sheriff's department, while officially keeping the case open, reassigned detectives to more current crimes. Lucas refused to let the case grow cold again. Now in his early 20s, he channeled his obsession into productive avenues. He created a website dedicated to the case, sharing evidence publicly and connecting with amateur sleuths nationwide. Every new visitor to the site saw the smiling faces of Victor, Elena, and Sofia Alvarez beneath the headline, "Still Missing." He studied forensic science in college, determined to gain the expertise he'd need to continue the investigation professionally. His professors recognized his unusual focus, sometimes encouraging him to broaden his interests, other times marveling at his single-minded dedication. The desert called him back repeatedly. Each school break found him methodically searching new areas, using increasingly sophisticated equipment purchased with donations from supporters of his cause. The green truck, now stored in an evidence warehouse, had been just one piece of the puzzle. What else might the shifting sands be hiding? His grandparents watched his quest with a mixture of pride and concern. "We worry about you, mijo," his grandmother told him one evening. "Your whole life revolves around finding them." "What else should it revolve around?" he asked without bitterness. "They would have never stopped looking for me." The search took its toll. Relationships remained superficial. Few peers could understand his preoccupation with a 7-year-old disappearance. Dating was complicated by the fact that any potential partner was competing with ghosts. Yet, alongside the cost, came unexpected gifts. Lucas found himself at the center of a community of families with missing loved ones. They recognized in him something they saw in themselves: the refusal to accept uncertainty, the need to know, no matter how painful the truth might be. He began helping others design search grids, analyze evidence, and navigate the bureaucracy of law enforcement. In giving hope to others, he reinforced his own. On the 7th anniversary of finding the truck, Lucas stood again in the desert, at the exact spot where the vehicle had been buried. The hole had long since been reclaimed by sand, as if the truck had never been there at all. "I'm still looking," he said aloud, words carried away by the wind. "I'll always be looking." The unanswered question possesses a power that certainty never can. It refuses the mind its rest, denies the heart its peace. It exists in the space between knowing and not knowing, a space the Alvarez family has occupied for more than a decade. The desert keeps its secrets with ancient patience. It preserves what it buries: vehicles, artifacts, bodies, in a state of suspended animation. The same heat that blisters living skin mummifies the dead. The same sand that obscures tracks also shields what lies beneath from decay. This duality makes the desert both preserver and concealer of truth. For Lucas, the half-buried truck embodied this paradox. Its discovery was both revelation and deeper mystery, answer and question, closure and reopened wound. It proved his family had been there but told him nothing of where they went. It confirmed his suspicions but created new ones. What constitutes closure in a case like this? Is it the recovery of remains, the assignment of blame, the understanding of motive? Or is it something more personal? The ability to finally lay down the weight of uncertainty, to redirect a life defined by absence toward presence instead. 7-year-old Lucas watching his family drive away for the last time, could never have imagined how that moment would divide his life into before and after. 17-year-old Lucas, digging frantically in the desert, could never have known how finding the truck would transform but not resolve his quest. Now, as a young man, he exists in a new state of in-between. The desert has yielded one of its secrets, but not all. The green truck, half buried for 7 years, stands as metaphor for the nature of this case. Partially revealed, partially concealed, an object simultaneously explaining everything and nothing. Perhaps true closure isn't finding all the answers, but learning to live meaningfully with the questions that remain. The mystery of what happened to the Alvarez family continues to unfold, one grain of sand at a time. What would you do if you were Lucas? Would you keep searching no matter how many years passed? Or would you try to build a life outside the shadow of this mystery? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might offer insight I haven't considered. This community solves mysteries together. If this story touched something in you, hit that subscribe button to join our Last Seen Stories family. Every week, we explore cases that mainstream media has forgotten, but families never can. Remember, for every mysterious disappearance in the headlines, there are dozens more Lucas Alvarezes out there, searching desert sands, dense forests, and city streets for answers about those they've lost. Their determination reminds us of the power of love, a force that refuses to accept silence as the final word. The buried truck isn't just evidence in a cold case. It's a testament to the truth that what is hidden will eventually be found. Some secrets can't stay buried forever.